This story really begins in 2006. I was in my 6th year of teaching, and most of those 6 years I had spent unhappy and frustrated. Students continued to come to my classroom, academically below grade level, behaviorally challenged, and they were increasingly disengaged. The more that I tried to force their engagement or positive behaviors, the more frustrated I became. And it seemed that their parents weren't invested in their education. Administration appeared to be, at best, unsupportive. At worst, ignorant to what was going on all around them. By the middle of the year, enough was enough, and I asked to schedule a meeting with our superintendent. I can't do this anymore, I told him. I'm tired and I'm frustrated. I don't seem to be making a difference. I fully expected him to tell me that letting me out of my contract in the middle of a school year wasn't an option, or that finding someone to replace me in the middle of a school year wasn't an option, or that leaving my students hanging in the balance was simply not an option. And instead, he stood and he walked around his desk, he pulled up a chair next to me, and he sat. And measuring his words, he calmly said that if I wasn't happy, I wasn't giving my students what they deserved, and that he wouldn't keep anyone from doing what made them happy. And then he said that he understood if my mind was made up, but that he saw leadership qualities in me, and that he believed in my potential as an educator. He believed in my potential. Now, it didn't happen overnight. Teaching did not magically become easier. But what I had been seeing as obstacles began to look more like welcome challenges. And those parents and administrators who seemed just as frustrated and disengaged as I had become began to look like they were searching for the same answers that I was. I look back at the educator I was more than a decade ago, and a teacher who thought that students were unmotivated when what they needed was someone to teach them different strategies. A teacher who thought that kids chose to misbehave when what they needed was someone to teach them coping skills. A teacher who relied on the influence of power and didn't fully realize the transforming power of influence. By some estimates, we have 200,000 educators that leave the field every year for reasons other than retirement. 10% of early career teachers leaving in the first 3 years. And graduation rates in many places aren't where we want them to be. So I ask all of us, how do we influence those around us the way that Mr. Chuck Arns influenced me? It is possible, but we can't do it by simply looking to change the behavior of others if we're not willing to first change our own behavior. And I want to talk about several strategies that I believe will have a significant impact within our circles of influence. Many of them we've talked about for the last 2 or 3 days, over and over. Visibility. We need to get out of our offices, get into classrooms, into the hallway and the cafeteria, onto the school buses. Are there going to be things that we have to put on hold? We have to go back to later? Sure. But it's important that our teachers and our students see that we are working alongside them, especially during the harder seasons of the school year. Transparency. We can't involve staff in every decision that we make, but we're making big decisions every day that directly impact them. So when we can involve staff, and better yet, students, keep them in the loop, allow them to have a voice, we're going to be better off. Vulnerability. Recovery is more important than perfection. And if we're going to create these environments that embrace risk-taking, it's up to us to be models of resiliency. It's more important that we get the decisions right than that we are right. And it's okay for others to see we don't have all the answers all the time. Ecology. When I meet new families, oftentimes I'll hear mom or dad say to their child, I don't ever want to get a phone call from him when you're in his office. I think we need to change that mindset. Our offices need to be seen as a safe place, a place where staff, parents, students can come, share their ideas, share their frustrations, share their anxieties. Are there times when we have to manage behavior? Absolutely. And we can do that seated behind the power of our desk. But locations have memories. And when we counsel or we mentor, get up from behind the desk and sit alongside them. Every school year has its harder seasons. We're not just talking about holidays, Fridays, full moons, homecoming week, the week before spring break, and in Minnesota you have 17 snow days. These are all seasons, and they bring unpredictable behavior. But if we can plan for the behaviors that we might see out of kids and adults, we're ready to react ahead of time. Assume positive intent. I can promise parents are not keeping their best kids at home. Kids aren't getting up in the morning and thinking, how can I make so-and-so's life miserable? And our teachers are doing the best they can with the resources that we've given them. So when a decision goes sideways, before we react, let's assume positive intent. Ned. Humans are messy. Whether it's big humans or it's little humans, we all have a story. We bring that story with us. And when things are new, emotional, or difficult, our stories are even messier. So stay in tune to what's going on and support our people through those new emotional and difficult times. Remember to laugh. We see things that if we can't laugh, we'll go crazy. So enjoy the time you have at school. Let others see that you enjoy that time. Celebrate even the smallest victories. Recognize staff and students in ways that they'll appreciate. A post on social media, an email, or a handwritten note. They all go a long way. And with that, I want to leave us with a strategy that I've found to be the most impactful. I carve out 45 minutes each week, and I challenge everyone to do this. The homeroom class list from each homeroom. One student each week, and at least one staff member gets a handwritten note. And they'll say that doing things for others is a selfish act because it makes us feel good. And when you get a note back from a first-year teacher who says, thank you for the impact you've had and they're ready to tackle next year, or an early career teacher who thanks you for the influence you've had on them, or a student who just appreciates that you ask how they're doing when you see them in the hallway, or another that says, a lot of people can say you influence them, but you give me dad advice. Not sure I'll take that one yet. We might not know the impact that our influence will have, but rather than forcing engagement or forcing positive behaviors, I hope we can go back next week and transform through the power of influence. Thank you.